think my main motivation was that after finishing my master's thesis, I had realized that I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed working academically and scientifically. And at the end of my master's thesis, I didn't even have the feeling that I was fed up with it. Actually, I would have wanted it to go on longer.
Basically, it's based on my personal experience, interest, and curiosity. Also, because of work, job needed. For myself, because I started doing PhD after I had experience working in a company, and so after 2 years, I want to know what's life about in the academia. That's why but it's based on I already know what's life in the company and on the work related because I worked in an international organization and which require a lot of professional ideas, understandings. That's why, and around me, all my office people have kind of have higher education, so that's why that's motivated me to do a PhD.
I think first time during my master studies, I noticed that I had a lot of unanswered questions in my mind. I also explored that there are a lot of information in my mind, but these informations seemed to be trapped in boxes where they did not belong. So I strongly felt that I had to do something very urgently to place each of them where they belong. Another motivation of mine was hoping that I was hoping that I would be able to share all this information with community and working class, and it would also be possible to leave all this information to the next generations.
I would say yes and no. Yes, it's really beyond many of my expectations. Like, I feel it's a journal, like doing a PhD. It's like a monk suddenly got enlightenment. It's really a very unexpected, achievement. So you see many things and with a different lines, or sometimes with a more additional lines, which you understand things are more, I would say, a little bit deeper than myself before. No, it's also after the PhD, and you suddenly realize actually it's a very difficult for job looking. It's not easy. It's a very basic and very competitive, even more than PhD. Looking for postdoc, it's more than I expected. I thought it would be easier.
I think one shouldn't expect a PhD to be something like an automatic career boost because it really depends on the field of research you go into. So if you research on something that is very, very abstract, you might not get more possibilities to work in that afterwards. The same if you study something that is very well studied already, there might be too much competition. So it really depends on the field of interest.
Actually, it exceeded my expectations. It was much beyond my expectations, I would say. Of course, I knew that I would enter into the immense labyrinth of science in this period, and I entered. It was lovely. It was a very exciting process for me because I was comparing different methodologies, different ontological approaches, and a different political approach. This was very lovely and exciting work for me. However, I didn't plan or hope to help others like students, master students or PhD students. I found this later on when I finished PhD. I saw that also these people need help from me. Besides this, I joined several conferences and made presentations in these conferences. This was also among my expectations. Another thing was that I produced a lot of articles, academic articles. All of them were published in periodicals or sometimes in joint edited books. Sometimes I wrote books that they were published abroad or in my country. So all these were really much beyond what I expected in the very beginning.
To the class of wrong motivations, I would count peer group pressure and fulfilling the ambitions of others. As you have to write the PhD thesis and not your friends or parents, it must be your own ambition that drives you.
Be frank, I really have no idea. I think this is really based on individuals' decision making, and as outsiders, we can really, hardly to say whether it's good or bad or right or wrong, depending on person. But I do really think whoever taking the decision should actually think before. And after all, there will be for maybe sometime 5 years ahead of you to accomplish. Otherwise, it would cause some psychological, problems because you didn't accomplish a thing like you started. And but anyway, I still think everyone have their own right to decide. And in terms of motivation, I don't think there is right or wrong.
Well, in a world that's turned upside down, right and wrong are absurd categories. But having said that, I would say one of the wrong motivations for doing a PhD is to look at it simply as a career thing. So something that in itself, like the subject that you're studying, is not in itself important. It's just important as a kind of path to do something else. But you have to be equally passionate about the thing because, as I said, it's quite a lonely journey. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're going to be very frustrated and alienated along the way. A right reason to do it, I would say, would include the idea that you will learn how to positively discipline yourself into focusing on something specific, reading about it, reading different aspects, and trying to come up with some understanding of how the world works. As I said, it's not going to be a groundbreaking thing. It's not going to affect many people, but it's going to give you the tools to have a better understanding of the world, hopefully.
By doing PhD, you can establish a bridge between yourself and community through writing, teaching, doing field research, presenting in the conferences, and so on. There are many ways to establish a bridge between yourself and community.
So the formal answer would be that one needs a PhD in order to advance an academic career. It's absolutely necessary if you want to engage with academia to have a PhD and then proceed with a postdoc or something else. At a more personal level, I would say PhD is good for giving one the opportunity to research and thoroughly look into a topic and subject that they're really interested in.
So a doctoral study sometimes need combination of different methodologies and disciplines, sometimes and mostly needs to narrowing your field. So you need to balance these two, depending on your topic, of course. All these methods you learn during PhD can also be applied in different fields in the rest of your life. So this is the biggest asset that you get during doing your PhD. I think it is the most important one because you usually think that you are limited only with the topic you handled during PhD, however not. You can apply all these methods in other fields such as migration, gender, international politics, trade union and labor issues, gentrification, and many other aspects, fields under social sciences.
Well, I think there's nothing really special as what can PhD, good for. For me, it's more like a process. And with my personal experience, it's more like I use doing PhD as an excuse to do something I can escape. For example, at previous work, a lot of family expectations, but these 4 years of PhD helped me somehow escaped from all these kind of family pressures, and because you have a very, very just find a reason to just do something what you really like. And what can one do thing with the PhD? I think not really much. I think it's more like a certain kind of jobs really needed. For example, in academia and some academic research would really need, because I do think after the 4 years or 5 years intensive studies, a PhD really gave you some deeper understanding.
As doing a PhD takes some time, some further motivations might provide you with the stamina to finish the process. In most cases, having a PhD opens the door to more interesting jobs, higher pay, and provides you with some social prestige. There's nothing wrong with it if you are motivated by these benefits of a PhD. However, you should keep in mind that especially in the social sciences, the early stages of an academic career are marred by job precarity. Also, during the PhD process, you will earn only little money, if at all. If money is important to you, then move rather quickly into the labor market. And the prestige power of a PhD is on the wane. In other words, these motivations can only be secondary to the main motivation, passion for a specific topic.
Well, I think time consuming is really one of the biggest issue for me doing a PhD. After all, it takes really four and a half years for me to finish the PhD. And the time consuming is a process which no one can really do with it. And also it's the whole process of, being alone, thinking very deeply. But of course, you're going to have depression. Many of my friends doing PhD have depression, conflicts with many people, especially sometimes with supervisor, in terms of ideological disagreement in a certain kind of theories or methodology. This process is really not only like you are doing study, you are only learning something, because at the end you have to produce a product, your thesis. And the product of thesis is a really long process of negotiation.
Well, one of the negative aspects of a PhD is that it's a very lonely journey. One gets literally obsessed with a specific topic that they're looking at. And quite often, it's difficult to relate that to your surroundings. So a lot of people, friends, or even sometimes colleagues would not understand like the exact obsession that drives you. And that could be quite an alienating experience for people when they feel so lonely. And it takes a while, it takes a few years. You dedicate a few years of your life to doing that. And it can get frustrating.